The Most Evil People Ever Explained by Chris Explains. Very interesting. Let me see. So we got Vlad the Impaler, Elizabeth Bathory, Thomas the Torquemada, Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Heinrich Himmler. That makes sense. Shiro Ishii, that name I know, is a Koch. Either it's Josef Mengele or Joseph Mengele. That's the question. Pol Pot, Adi Amin, Jim Jones, H. Holmes, Andre Chikatilo, and Leopold II of Belgium. That's the kind of people. This list, by the way, is faulty. I'm not on it. Anyways, he's probably not as bad. He's crazy to say, but he's probably not as bad as the people on here. Likely. I'm assuming. Anyways, we'll go in. We'll go in. Also, please consider liking and subscribing. I appreciate it. Here we go.
The most evil people ever. Vlad III, Prince of Wallachia, is remembered by a name that speaks to his methods, Vlad the Impaler.
Honestly, I wouldn't even consider it that. Because was he really evil, or did he just defend Europe from the Arab invasion? That's the question, though. Would we really consider this man necessarily evil? Huh.
His reign in the mid-15th century was marked by acts of extreme cruelty in a region caught between Christian Europe and the expanding Ottoman Empire. His legacy became so intertwined with folklore that it shaped the modern image of the vampire Dracula. But the historical Vlad was a real man, whose brutality was a calculated tool of war and political control. Born in 1431, Vlad grew up in a volatile world and was sent as a boy hostage to the Ottoman court, a period that profoundly shaped his ruthless worldview. His life was
Yeah. I think my man has his reasons to be that angry. Just me, though. Just me. Vlad is the most evil. Nah. I think Vlad systematically went after certain groups of people, though he did very much not like Muslims. Yeah, just interesting.
defined by betrayal. His father and older brother were murdered by rival nobles, instilling in him a deep desire for vengeance. This early exposure to political violence also introduced him to methods of execution like impalement. Upon seizing the throne, he famously invited hundreds of rival nobles to a feast, only to have them captured and killed. He used this method to create forests of the dead, a terrifying form of psychological warfare against his Ottoman enemies. Accounts from the era suggest his actions were responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of people. Despite his cruelty, his fierce resistance made him a hero to many. He was killed in battle in 14...
I mean, depends on how you define evil. Well, true, but like, chances are if he didn't do what he did, we'd all speak Arabic right now.
76. In Romania, he is remembered as a national hero, but in the wider world, his name remains synonymous with cruelty, immortalized by a legend born from his brutal deeds. In the late 16th century, Hungarian Countess Elizabeth Bathory earned a chilling moniker, the notorious Blood Countess. She was accused of torturing and brutally killing hundreds of young women, and her case remains one of the most sensational in all Europe.
There we have it. When people say women don't commit evil, there we have it. Yep. I don't even remember what the reason was why she did what she did. I don't even remember. I also don't know if she specifically also went after virgins.
In history. Born in 1560 into one of Hungary's most powerful families, Elizabeth was well-educated and possessed considerable wealth. She was married at 15 to a respected soldier, Ferenc Nadasdy. While her husband was away at war, Elizabeth managed their vast estates. Rumors about her cruelty towards servants circulated for years. These whispers intensified after her husband's death in 1604, when she seemed to act with greater impunity. Her alleged motivations were tied to a belief that the blood of young women could preserve her youth. Between 1590 and 1610, Bathory was accused of luring girls to her castle.
Ah, so she was like, I could retain my youth if I obliterate a bunch of young women. Huh. Interesting. She's just sad she's inbred. Well, for some wealthy families that's probably the case. It was because she wanted to stay young and pretty, I think. That didn't necessarily help her at all.
Testimony from over 300 witnesses described horrific acts of torture. The number of victims cited ranged from dozens to over 600. In 1610, authorities investigated. Due to her family's high status, Bathory was never formally tried. Instead, she was imprisoned within her own castle, where she died 4 years later. Her accused servants, however, were convicted and executed. The story.
Damn, I guess she needed to. She probably had a. I guess she ran out of young souls to consume. Interesting.
Of Elizabeth Bathory has become a cornerstone of horror folklore. While some historians suggest the case was exaggerated for political gain, the legend of the Blood Countess continues to fascinate and horrify. Tomás de Torquemada, the first Grand Inquisitor of the Spanish Inquisition, was a man whose name became synonymous with religious intolerance.
Bald! Bald! He is bald! Well, he probably wouldn't be bald, but he is bald!
Appointed in 1483, his quest for religious purity created a system of institutionalized terror. Born in 1420, Torquemada joined the Dominican order and gained a reputation for his piety. He became the personal confessor to Queen Isabella I, giving him immense influence at court. He persuaded the monarchs that an inquisition was needed to unify Spain under one faith. Torquemada was driven by a fanatical belief that religious dissent was a threat. His primary targets were conversos, Jews who had converted to Christianity but were suspected of practicing their former faith in secret. As Grand Inquisitor, he established tribunals across Spain. He authored instructions that allowed for anonymous accusations and brutal torture to extract confessions. Those found guilty faced punishments including being burned at the stake.
Tomás the Great. Bro is like, have you heard, Tomás? This man over there, he's gay. Burn him alive, torture him until he admits he's gay. And then kill him anyways. Pretty much, if you want to go that way, it's pretty much how this happened, right? They will put under immense torture and eventually you'll just confess, right? Eventually, out of like the pain, you'll just confess. So like anything that like he wanted to hear, they would eventually say. So like there was no you were not getting out of this. You might have as well just admit it and hope that the punishment isn't that crazy.
Also played a key role in the 1492 Alhambra Decree, which expelled all Jews from Spain. During his 15-year tenure, it is estimated that at least 2,000 people were executed.
What is this one-sided beef with the Jews? What's this one-sided beef? So this is a list of evil people? Yeah, pretty much. All people blame Jews for anything in history. It's like, what is this one-sided beef?
The institution he built would continue for over 300 more years. His leadership created a climate of fear that stifled intellectual and cultural life in Spain for generations, serving as a cautionary tale about the dangers of fanaticism. Adolf Hitler's rise to power in 1933 marked the beginning of one of history's darkest chapters. As the dictator of Nazi Germany, his actions and ideology led directly to the Second World War and the systematic murder of millions. Born in Austria.
Well, technically, if you want to argue this, technically World War II was just a continuation of World War I, because technically the contract that was made back then after World War I is technically not a peace treaty. If there's no peace, then there can be no new war, technically.
In 1889, Hitler was a frustrated artist who served in the German army during World War I. The German defeat and the Treaty of Versailles fueled his fervent nationalism and resentment. After the war, he transformed a small political party into the Nazi Party. His oratory skills allowed him to exploit widespread economic hardship. In 1923, he attempted a failed coup and, during his imprisonment, wrote Mein Kampf outlining his extremist ideology. Appointed chancellor in 1933, Hitler rapidly dismantled Germany's democratic institutions. He launched a massive rearmament program, and his invasion of Poland in 1939 triggered
This man locked in. This man literally locked in for the MMORPG we call life, which is crazy. A single man essentially managed to convince everyone else of his ideology. That's crazy. World War II was just part 2 of the Great War, technically. Second DLC.
World War II. Central to his regime was the Holocaust, the state-sponsored genocide of approximately 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. As Allied forces closed in on Berlin in April 1945, Hitler took his own life. The consequences of his regime were profound. His name has become synonymous with evil, a perpetual warning about the dangers of unchecked power and hateful ideologies. Joseph Stalin, the Man of Steel, ruled the Soviet Union for nearly 3 decades. His transformation of the country into a global superpower came at an astronomical cost, as his reign of terror was responsible for the deaths of millions of his own people. Born Iosif Jugashvili in 1878, Stalin...
Yeah, and it doesn't get better. He actively encouraged hunger in parts of Russia and also Ukraine. He was also involved in a lot of massacres in Poland. So the more you know. This man was not better at all. People were like, "Oh yeah, he stopped Hitler. He's a hero." No, he's not. He's just as evil. He is just as evil. That's what it is. He's just as evil. Nothing changes here. What you wonder about Joseph? He had this great mustache. At least he thought about his mustache, but still. This man's just as evil, and I don't understand why the communist symbol isn't banned just like the Nazi symbol. I question that.
had a harsh childhood. He was expelled from a seminary and became involved in...
You had a harsh childhood. People out there using that, by the way, as a justification for evil deeds. The harsh childhood.
the revolutionary Marxist movement. After the death of Vladimir Lenin, Stalin methodically outmaneuvered his rivals to consolidate power. By the late 1920s, Stalin was the undisputed leader. He implemented 5-year plans for industrialization and forced the collectivization of agriculture. This policy led to a catastrophic famine, particularly in Ukraine, known as the Holodomor. He also initiated the Great Purge, a brutal campaign of political repression where millions were executed or sent to Gulag labor camps. During World War II, Stalin...
Welcome to the Gulag. Crazy. The fact Asia doesn't know that the Nazi symbol means something over here tells me something. Really, it just means something different in Asia than in Asian countries, in some Asian countries, than it does here. That's the reason. They were really good at stealing and repurposing things. I'll give them that.
Stalin led the Soviet Union to victory over Nazi Germany, albeit with immense human losses. After the war, he established a bloc of communist states in Eastern Europe, initiating the Cold War. Stalin ruled until his death in 1953, leaving a legacy of fear that his successors would later denounce. While he oversaw the Soviet Union's rise as a nuclear power, his brutal methods and the immense death toll under his regime rank him among the most destructive tyrants in history. While Adolf Hitler was the face of Nazi Germany, Heinrich Himmler was its chief architect of terror. As head of the SS and the Gestapo, he systematically organized and executed the Holocaust, making him one of the most directly responsible individuals for the genocide. Born in 1900, Himmler was a bookish youth who joined the Nazi Party in 1923. Through meticulous organization and unwavering loyalty, he rose through the ranks, eventually taking command of the SS. He was obsessed with racial purity and occult.
Yeah, look at this. They have a literal like gene chart of what you can be. Isn't that crazy? And like what percentage and what was fine and what was not fine. That's crazy. We have that in our history books in school as well. These people give Germany a great name. Totally. Right to the Century of Cell, the full Adam Curtis documentary. If it's too long, I wouldn't do that.
He transformed the SS into a vast state within a state that controlled German police forces and the concentration camp system. Himmler was the primary overseer of the final solution, directing the construction and operation of the extermination camps. He also controlled the Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing squads that murdered over 1 million people. Every aspect of the genocide fell under his direct authority, which he pursued with chilling precision. In the final days of the war, he attempted to negotiate a separate peace, an act of betrayal. After Germany's surrender, he was captured by British forces. He took his life by biting a hidden cyanide capsule in May 1940.
Bro knows. Bro knows. Bro knew what would happen to him. Yeah. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it would have not technically made a difference. He just left on his own terms, I guess, sadly. Torture would have been better, but it is what it is. It's 4 hours, my guy. Yeah, we good, I think.
45. Heinrich Himmler's name is inextricably linked to the machinery of the Holocaust. He exemplifies how a seemingly unremarkable individual can become the administrator of unimaginable atrocities. During World War II, a Japanese army medical
Yes, the one of the craziest things the Japanese have done, and then they got hit with 2 atomic bombs, and then straight up went for kawaii des. Imagine getting slapped so hard you change your entire image.
officer named Shur Ishii commanded a covert research unit called Unit 731. Under his leadership, this unit conducted some of the most horrific human experiments in history, weaponizing disease in the name of military science. Born in 1892, Ishii was a brilliant microbiologist who advocated for a biological weapons program. He convinced military leadership this was essential, leading to the establishment of Unit 731 in occupied Manchuria. Ishii was driven by a fervent nationalism and ruthless scientific ambition. He saw human experimentation as a necessary step for advancing military power.
Yeah, they were like trying to freeze people solid, or like set them ablaze and like check what happens. They were like really experimenting on like captives. Very interesting. More reasons to dislike Japan. It ain't that deep. Well, it's over, right? Even if they like sit down now and admit, yeah, we did all this during World War II. It changes nothing.
He dehumanized his victims, whom he and his staff referred to as Maruda, or logs. As commander, Ishii personally oversaw lethal experiments, directing researchers to infect prisoners with plague, anthrax, and cholera. He supervised vivisections on conscious victims and frostbite tests. He also orchestrated field tests, spreading disease in Chinese cities. At the end of the war, Ishii ordered the destruction of the facility. The United States granted Ishii and his researchers immunity from prosecution in exchange for their research data, which was considered valuable for the American biological weapons program. Shur Ishii never faced justice and died in 1959. His work represents a profound perversion of medical ethics and a grim warning about the potential for science to be weaponized when detached from morality. Known as the Witch of Buchenwald, Ilse Koch was the wife of the Buchenwald concentration camp commandant Karl Otto Koch. She became infamous due to her reputation for extreme cruelty.
It's not Koch, by the way. It's Koch. Like cook. If you want a literal translation, it's Ilse Koch. But yeah, it's Koch, not cock. Horrible pronunciation, diabolical. He's got that mad scientist look, oddly suits him. He was a mad scientist. Yeah.
Cruelty and gruesome allegations that she fashioned artifacts from the skin of murdered prisoners. Born in 1906, she joined the Nazi Party and married Karl Otto Koch. She followed him through his postings, but it was at Buchenwald from 1937 to 1941 that her notoriety was cemented. Living a life of luxury, Ilse Koch developed a reputation for sadistic behavior. Survivor testimonies describe her riding a horse and whipping any prisoner who dared to look at her. She seemed—
Damn. She's got some anger issues. Wait a minute, is that you, Samax? You like doing that too. You were sadistic. Hold up. Shows that Germany wanted the smoke for so long. Well, now they want the smoke as well, right? Friedrich out here, saying he wants to build the strongest European military. Round 3, baby. It is about time.
to relish her absolute power. Her most infamous alleged acts involved human skin. According to witness accounts, she would identify prisoners with interesting tattoos, who would then be killed and skinned. The skin was supposedly used to create items like lampshades. While physical evidence was scant, the testimony from numerous survivors was powerful. Elsa Koch was
See, the one thing is like you're evil, right? And then another thing is you're freaky. This is not just evil, this is also freaky. That's a very odd hobby. Couldn't you have picked something more normal? Like if she were collecting the shoes, that's still crazy, but like, why the skin, buddy? And then what the heck? Yeah, imagine wearing a skin t-shirt.
tried by an American military court, and later by a West German court where she was sentenced to life imprisonment. She spent the rest of her life in prison, where she was found deceased in 1967. Her case continues to be studied as an example of individual complicity and cruelty within a larger system of evil. Known as the Angel of Death SS officer and physician, Joseph Mengele was one of the most notorious figures at the Auschwitz concentration camp. He performed sadistic and deadly experiments on prisoners, particularly twins. Born in 1911, Mengele earned doctorates in anthropology.
Twins? Was he like, oh, if I hurt this one, does this one feel the pain? That kind of thing? Interesting.
Medicine. He joined the Nazi Party and the SS. After being wounded, he was assigned to Auschwitz in 1943 to conduct research on human subjects. Mengele was a firm believer in Nazi racial theory. At Auschwitz, he had an unlimited supply of people to exploit. He was a regular presence on the selection ramp, deciding who would live and who would be sent to the gas chambers. He was particularly obsessed with twins, performing gruesome experiments on them. These included injecting diseases, performing surgeries without anesthesia, and killing them to dissect their bodies. After the war, Mengele escaped justice. Using a network of former Nazi sympathizers, he fled to Argentina and later Paraguay, evading capture for decades. He died in Brazil in 1979, and his remains were identified in 1985. Joseph Mengele's
Bro just escaped. That's crazy. Bro was never caught. Bro avoided it all. Crazy. It's all usually a European and Russian person. Yeah. But Russians are also Europeans, depending on where you live.
name has become a symbol of medical malpractice and the horrific potential of science without ethics. His escape from justice remains a frustrating epilogue to the story of the Holocaust. From 1975 to 1979, Cambodia was subjected to a brutal social experiment under Pol Pot and his Khmer Rouge regime. In their quest to create a utopian agrarian society, they were responsible for the deaths of an estimated 2 million people. Born Salazar in 1925, Pol Pot was exposed to communist ideology in Paris. Upon returning to Cambodia, he joined revolutionary groups. Inspired by Maoism, the Khmer Rouge developed
Communist. Why am I not surprised? No, you're not too late. You're not too late.
a radical ideology focused on a classless rural society. They gained support by capitalizing on the chaos of the Vietnam War. After seizing power in 1975, they forcibly evacuated cities, marching the population into the countryside to work in collective farms. Money, private property, and religion were abolished. The regime systematically targeted intellectuals and professionals. This period became known as the Killing Fields. The Khmer Rouge rule ended in 1970.
Oh, I remember that. Never mind, I remember that. Yeah, that was insane. You're still not late. How often do you want to hear it? Another 3 times?
When Vietnam invaded and overthrew the regime. Pol Pot and his leadership fled and continued a guerrilla war for years. He was never brought to international trial and died in 1998, while under house arrest by his own comrades. The Cambodian genocide left the nation traumatized. The Khmer Rouge Tribunal was later established to bring surviving leaders to justice, a landmark in international law. Seizing power in a 1971 military coup, Idi Amin Dada ruled
Adi Amin. I have no idea who that is. That's the first time I'm hearing of this guy. By the way, you can hear my cat because my cat is horny. So if there's meowing, it's because she is in heat. And it's really obnoxious. Anyways, moving on.
Uganda for 8 brutal years. His regime was characterized by political repression and massive human rights violations, leading to the deaths of an estimated 300,000.
Uganda, do you know the way? Didn't they just criminalize being gay again? Or maybe criminalize it even harsher? I don't know. I don't remember.
People. Born in the 1920s, Amin had little formal education but rose through the ranks of the British colonial army. After Uganda's independence, he became a key figure in the army, positioning himself to overthrow President Milton Obote. Amin's rule was driven by paranoia. He established killer squads to terrorize the population. His regime systematically
That's a wild caricature right there. Also, look, it's a crocodile.
targeted specific ethnic groups, intellectuals, and anyone suspected of disloyalty. Bodies were often dumped into the Nile River. In 1972, he ordered the expulsion of Uganda's entire Asian minority. He seized their businesses and properties, an act which shattered the country's economy. Amin's downfall came after he attempted to annex a portion of neighboring Tanzania. The Tanzanian army, supported by Ugandan exiles, overthrew his regime in 1979. Amin fled the country and lived in comfortable exile in Saudi Arabia until his death in 2003.
Bro ran to Saudi Arabia. That's interesting. Huh. I've never heard of this dude. He kind of doesn't really compare to everyone else on this group necessarily. He's basically just like a black Austrian painter right there, kind of. But for Asians?
Having never faced trial for his crimes, his rule left Uganda devastated and traumatized. On November 18, 1978, in a remote settlement in Guyana, Reverend Jim Jones presided over a final, tragic ritual that resulted in the mass deaths of over 900 of his followers. This was the culmination of his descent.
Oh wait, that one I remember. That one I remember. Okay, that one I do in fact remember. That's rather interesting. Huh.
From a charismatic preacher into a paranoid cult leader. Born in 1931, Jones founded the People's Temple in the 1950s. Initially, it was praised for its progressive, racially integrated congregation and social services. He attracted a dedicated following as he moved from Indiana to California. As his power grew, his behavior became more controlling. He claimed to be a messiah and demanded followers surrender their possessions and sever family ties. He fostered an atmosphere of paranoia, convincing them the outside world wanted to destroy them. In the mid-1970s, Jones moved his followers to Jonestown in Guyana. In 1978, Congressman Leo Ryan visited to investigate abuse. As Ryan was leaving with defectors, he and 4 others were murdered by Jones's guards. Knowing the outside world would now intervene, Jones initiated what he called his final revolutionary act. He commanded his followers to drink a beverage laced with cyanide. Those who resisted were forced. Jones himself was later found deceased from a gunshot wound. The tragedy serves as an extreme example of psychological manipulation. The phrase drinking.
Interesting. Yeah, cults. Cults are a classic, right? We've watched a lot of videos on cults. That's crazy. Hi Zoom, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Yeah, but Somex didn't know that.
The Kool-Aid entered the popular lexicon as a metaphor for blind obedience. During the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, Dr. H.H. Holmes, one of America's first serial killers, operated a hotel dubbed the Murder Castle. It was a building allegedly designed for murder with secret passages and soundproof rooms. Born Herman Webster Mudgett, Holmes was intelligent and charismatic. He graduated from medical school, where he likely began his criminal career with insurance fraud. He moved to Chicago and changed his name to Henry Howard Holmes. A lifelong con artist, he constructed a 3-story building, hiring and firing numerous crews so no one would understand the full design. The upper floors were a labyrinth of windowless rooms, stairways to nowhere, and trapdoors. Some rooms were fitted with gas lines to asphyxiate his guests.
What did he did he try to create like a literal like Saw escape room kind of thing? What? That's crazy. No, I do not look like this man. The beard is not even close. Again, the beard is not even close. 3 main cast of Tangled live action is perfect. The source did say the Tangled live action movie will be almost the same as the original. I do not care. I hope it fails. I hope it flops. just like every other live action hopefully does.
He would then send the bodies down secret chutes to the basement, where he had a dissecting table, a furnace, and vats of acid. Holmes's downfall came from an insurance fraud scheme. He was arrested in 1894, and investigations unraveled the truth. After his arrest, his castle was gutted by fire. Holmes confessed to 27 murders and was hanged in 1896. The story of H.H. Holmes has become a fixture of American true crime lore, a chilling example of a methodical killer hiding in plain sight. For over a decade, a wave of brutal killings.
I do not know who this is. At least Scully's not on here. God, I hate it. I hate it that you guys make me watch this. Okay, what did he do? Did he also, he looks like, anyways.
Terrorized the Soviet Union, earning the perpetrator the nickname the Butcher of Rostov. The man responsible was Andrei Chikatilo, a former schoolteacher. Born in Ukraine in 1936 during a famine, Chikatilo's childhood was marked by trauma. He was socially awkward and had deep-seated psychological issues.
So, what bro did, practically, if you want to summarize it, right? He went from like school teaching kids to like obliterating them. Was that what this is? Why is every Russian named Andrei? I don't know. I have no idea. Who knows?
He later found work that required frequent travel.
No, technically he is Ukrainian, but yeah.
Chikatilo could only achieve sexual gratification through the act of stabbing and mutilating his victims. This drove him to commit his attacks over a 12-year period, from 1978 to 1990. He preyed
Great. The violent gooner. Wonderful.
on vulnerable individuals, luring them from train and bus stations into wooded areas. The investigation was hampered by the Soviet belief that serial murder was a capitalist phenomenon and by a lack of forensic techniques. After a massive police operation, Chikatilo was finally arrested in 1990. He confessed to 56 murders and was convicted of 52. During his trial, he was kept in a cage for his own protection. He was executed in 1994. The Chikatilo case forced the Soviet Union to confront the reality of serial crime, highlighting significant flaws in their investigative methods.
He shouldn't be on this list. Kinda nod. He's like a coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb. This would be like putting, I don't know who. Let me think of like some crazy person. I don't know. It's just like this would be like, this is really just coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb. The previous one as well. I know of a couple of more evil people, essentially.
Leopold II of Belgium is remembered for his personal...
Like, I'm like, wait a minute. Like, how is Mao not on this list? How is Mao not on this list? This doesn't make it, like, this list has some issues. Putting a knife next to a lightsaber, basically. Because, like, you could replace this guy with Mao, and Mao is way worse. So I'm like, how exactly is that? Does that make sense? It doesn't. It doesn't.
Ownership of the Congo Free State from 1885 to 1908. Under the guise of a humanitarian mission, he oversaw a brutal regime that resulted in the deaths of millions of Africans. Born in 1835, Leopold desired to establish Belgium as a colonial power. At the Berlin Conference, he convinced European leaders to grant him personal sovereignty over the Congo Basin, promising to bring civilization to the region. Leopold's project was a commercial enterprise for his personal enrichment. He established a mercenary army, the Force Publique, to enforce his will. His regime became infinitely more brutal with the global boom in rubber demand. The Force Publique...
Odd. But let's see. Okay, so why does he look like he's working on like a rice field? My bad, but he kind of does. It looks similar because I think it's just because of the hat, though. Because I can't see the top of the hat. There is no MAGA Civil War because Joe Rogan isn't MAGA and Tucker also isn't MAGA. If you have no idea of like these people, why are you talking about them?
was used to terrorize the Congolese population into meeting impossibly high rubber quotas. Those who failed were subjected to torture, kidnapping, and murder. The practice of severing the hands of men, women, and children as punishment became a horrifying symbol of the regime's cruelty. International outrage grew as reports and photographs of the atrocities spread across the world. Under pressure, Leopold relinquished control to the Belgian state in 1908. The exact death toll is unknown, but estimates range from 1 to 15 million people. Leopold II's
15? Bro, that's crazy.
rule in the Congo Free State stands as one of the most brutal examples of colonial exploitation, a critical case study in the history of human rights abuses. Thank you for
That's pretty much the end of the video. That's rather interesting. Okay, so what Leopold did, I did not know. The earlier black dictator, I did not know what he did. And the other guy before that was just kind of irrelevant. Honestly, there's like coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb. I don't know why he was there. And honestly, the woman earlier kind of doesn't belong there either, because you know, there's like some crazy people missing, right? There's like Mao is missing. There's probably Genghis Khan is probably also missing. It's just crazy. It's just very interesting. But Poke, you have a beard like that? No, I do not. I do not have a beard like that. It's not that long. It's also not gray. Anyways, interesting. Like, comment, and subscribe.